So I think it's pretty clear. One, Trump has had a 40-year view on tariffs. They're going to go through with this and they're going to see it through. I don't think you're going to see this grand capitulation. Two, they are okay with the volatility in the equity markets. And then three, which is the other thing that we've been talking about a lot, is where does this move our practical financing costs? What is this, right? We've talked about this. We have $6 trillion we need to finance in the next 9 months. So the singular goal, in my opinion, of the White House has been move the 10-year as aggressively and as quickly as possible. And
in this recent interview on All In with Chamath Palihapitiya, we learn about the Social Security immigration controversy, voter fraud, and political manipulation, and the economic consequences of Biden's open border policies. Chamath exposes shocking details from government data about how millions of Social Security numbers were given to undocumented immigrants, some now registered voters, potentially affecting election outcomes. He outlines how Biden's loose policies created a dangerous surge at the border, harming American resources and workers. Chamath boldly questions whether these actions were intentional political maneuvers or humanitarian mistakes with catastrophic results. Before we begin this discussion, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this channel. Now let's hear more from Chamath Palihapitiya.
I think that there's probably no more electric issue than this idea of voting impropriety. And I think it has become so brazenly partisan that everybody has suspended logic. Turns out that there was a manipulated effort in 2020, and there is even a thread of legitimacy to Trump's claims. You would never be able to see the light of day because so many Americans just turn off, right? And that's because of the rhetoric that they've been fed. This is a really important thing that I would just offer to you, is that if it is true that these people illegally voted, I think it's a thunderclap. And I think it opens wide the aperture on voting illegality and voting reform. And I think that irrespective of who you are, you should want to make sure that people who are not allowed to vote are not voting, just to put it simple. Well, there's the key word. Here's what I would ask you to consider.
Sure.
Your results are only as good as your prompts. Your results are only as good as your prompts.
Say it in plain English. What do you mean?
I suspect that if you put 3 or 4 of the smartest data scientists in the world, they would get to a very different answer than the answer that has been arrived to. I don't know whether that'll validate or invalidate the claim, but the quality of the people that are able to interrogate this data is directly correlated to the output that is created. Let me start by saying a couple things. To use the Donald Rumsfeld quote, I do agree with Ben tremendously that this was a known. We mentioned this last episode. Donald Trump has been speaking about tariffs for 40 plus years.
Yep.
So this is not a new thing. And I think that he tried this in Trump 1, but to your guys' point, it didn't really go well because he didn't have the team around him that had his back. And so it was inevitable that he would have tried it in Trump 2. He said it, and he's been able to do it. So if you weren't planning for it, whoever was vested in this outcome, you really needed to be focused on this. It was a known. And so there was a little dereliction of duty if you were caught off guard, I think. That's one. The second is, and we've said this all year since January 1 on this pod, we started it even with that poly market bet that I made, which is the Trump administration does not care about the stock market. And by the way, the trade actually closed out. So congrats to all these people that won $650,000. Free money. This was like the stock market giving out free money. But why did this happen? This happened because it was very clear to me early on that the rhetoric had shifted to say, we care about MAGA. We care about people that have working class and middle class jobs. None of those folks are deeply invested in the asset economy the way maybe some of us are. And so it was directionally clear. And by the way, Scott Bessent, what a cold ass quote yesterday. The equity market sell-off is a Mag 7 problem, not a MAGA problem. So there again, putting all of this into the realm of this is a known.
As we just heard Chamath Palihapitiya discuss the shocking Social Security immigration controversy, now let's hear him elaborate on voter fraud and political manipulation, and the severe economic impacts of Biden's policies. Chamath explains how thousands of illegal immigrants were discovered on voter rolls, some actively voting, raising serious questions about election integrity and the Democrats' intentions. He further reveals how these unprecedented immigration policies drained billions from American taxpayers, strained social services, and risked plunging the economy into crisis, potentially benefiting political interests at the expense of working-class Americans. Now let's listen to what Chamath Palihapitiya has to say.
So I think it's pretty clear. One, Trump has had a 40-year view on tariffs. They're going to go through with this and they're going to see it through. I don't think you're going to see this grand capitulation. Two, they are okay with the volatility in the equity markets. And then three, which is the other thing that we've been talking about a lot, is where does this move our practical financing costs? What is this, right? We've talked about this. We have $6 trillion we need to finance in the next 9 months. So the singular goal, in my opinion, of the White House has been move the 10-year as aggressively and as quickly as possible. And look what they've done. As of yesterday, it's unbelievable what's happened in the 10-year. You know, you were kissing 4%. And we talked about this. If it had gone in the other direction, guys, 30 or 40 basis points, and it touched 5%, you're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars of extra money that would not have been found, that would have had to be printed, right? And now this is hundreds of billions of dollars that we will save. Governments will now
I know
auction
that,
10 years, and the auctions will clear at around 4%. It is an enormous, like, as an American, what we should all be thinking is, irrespective of what you think you know or what you think you like about tariffs, we should all have a moment where we exhale, because the long end of the curve is giving us a respite in a storm, and we should be incredibly thankful. Let's play the ball where it lies.
Okay.
The Wall Street smart money thought this was a $250 billion event. They were wrong. This is part of why the stock market has reacted so violently today. This is a $750 billion to trillion dollar event. Okay, this is a big moment in the market. So what does it create? It creates the risk of a recession. How do you minimize that risk? That is all about how easy it is for the average person to be able to borrow money. Where is that dictated? That is more dictated by the Fed and how they price the front end of the curve. So what we need to have happen now is, while Scott is out financing $6 trillion on the back end, we now need to get Jerome Powell to cut the front end. And if you do it aggressively enough, you can introduce liquidity in a moment where small and medium-sized businesses can go and get financed to weather the storm. So so I'll give a very specific example. A friend of ours runs a 100+ year company. I'm just going to say it in generic terms so that I don't betray his confidence.
Sure, no problem.
And this is a business that's been built over 100 years, owned by an American family, an incredible family, and they make products that we all know and love. And what did this action do? So in their example, they're in a very difficult position because they have, as David said, a very tight operating margin because they have to compete ferociously against China. And they've done everything possible to maintain their capabilities in America, hire American workers in the heartland, but still compete against China. It's tough. And this action today swings them from profitability to a potential yearly loss in a meaningful order of magnitude, like hundreds of millions of dollars. So, Jason, that's the other side of this tariff coin. So we have to find a way of finding those examples, and as Ben said, excluding them somehow or giving them reprieve, because that wasn't the intention, I think, of what Trump was trying to do yesterday. That's an example of a company that should be winning and should continue to win and fight the good fight against China and try to continue to employ thousands of Americans. But this thing, because they had some capacity in some other countries, not China, by the way.
Got it.
Blows the thing up, and so now you have to fix those things.
To watch the full interview, check out the link in the description. Chamath Palihapitiya delivered a powerful revelation, exposing Biden's immigration policies as a ticking economic and political time bomb. With millions potentially impacted by fraudulent votes and strained economic resources, America faces critical questions. Is this crisis a calculated strategy to shift political power, or a humanitarian policy gone terribly wrong? How can America protect its democracy and economy amid these controversial decisions? Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this discussion, please subscribe, like, and share our video for more engaging content exploring the innovative world of decentralized technologies. SIM swap fraud is sweeping the globe, and your mobile security is at risk. Switch to Ifani and lock out SIM swap fraud and get the most elite mobile protection in the world. Ifani guarantees 100% protection from SIM swaps backed by a $5 million insurance policy. Stay secure with reliable coverage, free international roaming, and unlimited data. Trust Ifani to keep your communications and assets secure. Get military-grade protection, 24/7 concierge service, and a hassle-free upgrade. Click the link below for $150 off. Thanks for watching. Help support this channel and receive exclusive offers from one of our partners located in the description. We'll see you on the next one.